life with it as our constant companion. So the more we learn about it, the better it becomes, the easier it becomes to know. All right, so we know that the day is going to be pretty exciting, but this is not a Sky Today show. This is a Sky Tonight show, so let's get right into it. The sun is also pretty nice because it becomes a great navigational tool. Oh my goodness, look at it go! And that's going to be the eclipse. It's going to be happening today. Make sure you head outside for our block party later on. Hopefully these clouds won't be in front of the sun. That will be a shame. But remember, the sun is going to rise in the east and set in the west, which is another reason why it's such a useful tool. Because it sets in the west, we kind of get an idea of which direction we're facing, which becomes really useful for stargazing. Now, I'm about to ask another question. You can shout it out. Which direction are we facing right now? South. Yeah, we are facing south. A lot of people assume that we're facing north right away, which I understand, but south is kind of popping off this time of year, so south is a pretty good sky to look at. Now when you look up at the stars, what do you see? Maybe stars, maybe planets, maybe constellations. Most likely you're going to see a sky that looks a little bit closer to this. This is because of a phenomenon called light pollution. It is especially present for those who live in and around cities. The sky becomes a bit dimmer than we'd like, but I promise that everything that I point out during the show will be visible even in Philadelphia. I know because I've done it a few times. I'll point out the brightest and easiest things to see. Now, you might see a lot of stars, and those stars will start to form shapes called constellations. Now, there are 88 recognized constellations right now, and these constellations have told stories from the beginning of human storytelling. We have used the sky as a tool. Now, they haven't all been the same. Cultures are going to change them up, but they will always have meaning. And we divide these into our northern hemisphere of stars up here and our southern hemisphere of stars down here. Now there's this nice little band right over here. Does anybody know what this band is called? I will give you a hint. It has to do with birthdays and begins with the letter Z. The Zodiac Band, yeah. The Zodiac Band of stars is going to find pretty famous guys such as we've got Taurus over here, we've got Virgo rising over here, we've got Cancer right there. But, you know, aside from being one of the more well-known band of constellations, it's also our celestial equator. This means that all of the planets that you're looking for are going to be orbiting along this band. If you're ever trying to find a planet, look for it along the zodiac band. We've got orbitals for all of those, but let's declutter the sky a little bit. Now you may notice something right over here that is not attached to any sticks at the moment. Now I pointed out even though it's pretty low on the horizon because even though this is around 9 o'clock, about a 9 o'clock sky, this is going to be visible right at sunset. It's going to be bright and you'll be able to track it. Does anybody know what this is? It is going to be Jupiter. Jupiter the planet. And it's one of the clearer planets that you can see at any time of year, but it's starting to kind of set. Now, if you're looking up at the sky at around sunset, it's going to be right there. It's going to be right there, right in the west. And so now let's take a look at some of our other constellations. Now again, my goal is to try to make the sky as easy as possible, and constellations are going to help each other kind of get found. Now first things first, does anybody know who this guy is over here? Orion, nice job. Orion is going to be a very distinct and bright constellation in the night sky. Probably right at sunset you'll be able to see some of its stars. Orion is the hunter that vowed to slay all animals and was thrown into the sky to be chased by a scorpion for all time. Now, Orion the Hunter is a fun story, but the constellation gets even better. So the way that you'll be able to recognize Orion is by this band of 3 stars right here. This is going to be called Orion's Belt, easy name. But you'll also be able to find his sassy stance, these shoulder pops and hip pops right here. He's kind of, he's popping out his hip a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you can find these stars, then you can find Orion. Try and find the belt and try and find his stance. Now, if you do, try and look for this star right here. This is one of the brighter stars in Orion. It's up in the top left-hand corner, and it is the star Betelgeuse. Betelgeuse actually looks red, pink to the naked eye. It is going to be a red supergiant out in space, and it's very big, very bright. Now, once you find Orion, you can kind of follow this belt downwards to the brightest thing that you can see. This is going to be our star, Sirius, and it's part of the constellation Canis Major. Canis Major is the big dog following Orion. So we've got Orion, we've got his dog companion. And again, it's going to be one of the brightest things that you can see in the night sky until a little bit later when we start to see Arcturus. But if you can find this belt here and you can find Sirius the dog star, then you can complete this trio to this star right here, creating this Orion triangle to this little duo of stars that make up the constellation Canis Minor. Canis Minor is the little dog. So we've got Canis Major, we've got Canis Minor, and we've got Orion, all sitting in a bright trio sort of towards the southwest area. Now, if you find Canis Minor and you follow it east, you'll be able to reach this right here. This is the next brightest thing. If you go find the brighter star in Canis Minor and you head east, you'll be able to find this guy right here. Now, this is colloquially called the heart of the lion, and it's going to be the brighter star in the constellation Leo. Now, Leo is part of that zodiac band, and it's kind of shaped like a clothes hanger. The main stars that you'll be able to see are going to be these in this kind of trapezoid shape that makes up Leo the lion. And you can find Leo by finding Canis Minor. Now, hopefully, I'm driving the point home that once you find one constellation, others are going to be easier to find. If you look up north, or a little bit north, kind of just towards the top of the sky, you may be able to find these two. These are going to be our Gemini twins. Now I'm just kind of spouting things out because I really like Gemini twins. They're bright in the night sky. And if you kind of fill out this area over here, you may be able to find the Charioteer, which is another bright kind of cluster of stars. Nope, that's Taurus. Auriga, there we go. The Charioteer up there creating a circle. Again, once you start to create the patchwork of the sky, it all becomes a little clearer. Now we're going to get rid of these stars because the main ones we want to focus on are these. And let's rotate the dome north because there are a few more things that I want to show you before we head out into the sky. Now another very famous constellation, or asterism more, is going to be this guy right here. Does anybody know what this is called? We've got the Big Dipper right there, yeah. And at first these might seem to be cliches, but really these are going to be where we build out the rest of the sky. So it's going to be the Big Dipper, part of Ursa Major, and the Big Dipper is going to be an asterism, a smaller part of a larger constellation. Now, while Ursa Major is really exciting, I really want to focus on the Dipper right here because it looks like exactly what it is in the night sky. It's incredibly bright and it looks like a big spoon hanging out up there. And there are two things that you can find once you find the Big Dipper, this spoon in the sky. If you follow the arc of the handle of the spoon to the next brightest thing you can see in the sky, you'll find Arcturus. Arcturus is going to be one of the brightest stars that you can see. So if you follow the handle of the Big Dipper, you'll be able to arc to Arcturus. Remember, arc to Arcturus, and you'll be able to find Arcturus. Now, another fun thing that's a little bit harder to see is going to be found if you follow the bottom lip of the Big Dipper. If you follow these two stars down, 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 down to hit the next brightest thing that you can see, it's going to be a little dim, but it's a very famous star. Does anybody know what this star is called?
North Star.
The North Star. It is the North Star. It is part of Ursa Minor, the little bear. And while it's pretty dim, it's a great star to look for because no matter what time of year, it is going to be facing north at all times. So you'll always be able to find the North Star if you are facing north. Alrighty, and the sky is becoming just absolutely filled out. But let's see where we are watching all of these stars from. Let's get a bit more of a perspective on our planet. We're going to rotate the dome out into the sky. And there we are with a bit of a satellite's view of our northeast. Now, we're going to take a look at the Earth a little bit, but mainly what we want to take a look at are our neighbors and satellites. So, let's fly straight towards the moon. Now, the moon isn't going to be visible unless it's pretty close to the sun, but it'll become more and more visible as time goes on. Right now, it's pretty close to the sun. Does the moon generate its own light?
No.
No, it does not. It gets its light from the sun. As the season progresses, we're going to see more and more of this moon. But for now, we are going to be taking a look at a solar eclipse. That's so exciting. The reason why this can happen and why it's so spectacular when it does is because the moon is about 400 times smaller than the sun. But it's also about 400 times closer to the Earth than the sun is. This is this incredible chance happening that our solar system just happens to have. It's truly incredible. And also, as the sun, or as the moon moves further and further from the Earth, it will become impossible to see solar eclipses in maybe 1,000 years or so. All right, let's fly towards the source of our light, the source of our light on our Earth, but also the reason why things like Jupiter are so bright in the night sky, the reason why the moon is bright in the night sky, the source of all light in our solar system, our wonderful sun. Now, make sure you do not stare directly at the sun with your bare eyes. You need special glasses to do so. But also, if you make your way to our Franklin Institute Observatory on a weekend that is sunny, we may look for these things up here. These are going to be called our sunspots. Now, sunspots indicate that the sun is not just a sphere of hot gas in our solar system, but a giant ball of plasma. Plasma, our fourth state of matter that is exploding up, arcing out in a dynamic dance, one that is visible with the right telescope. And obviously, I am a big fan of the sun, but let's see even more of a larger perspective on just where our sun sits in the grand scheme of our galaxy. So we're going to zoom out a little bit, and I'll even turn on those solar system orbits. We even have one that's green for Pluto, even though Pluto is not a planet. So as we zoom out, we start to see more of these orbits. I'm going to bring Betelgeuse into the mix. Remember, Betelgeuse is going to be that red giant in the top left-hand corner of Orion. Now, if Betelgeuse were our sun, Earth would easily be swallowed up. things get pretty big out here in space, so we're happy to have the sun that we have. We're happy to live in the Goldilocks zone that we do. Let's get rid of these orbits as well, and even our sun and its surrounding planets start to kind of fade into a sea of dots, some very similar, some very different than our own. We can zoom out even further to our Milky Way. And so now here we are in our 100,000 light year across neighborhood that we call our Milky Way galaxy. Now, this is important to note that these dots now are no longer stars, they are galaxies. Again, some very like our own, some fundamentally different. And where are we in all of this? Well, we are going to be right about here. This is going to be where we sit in the scheme of our Milky Way galaxy. Now, we're not too far out towards a void, but we're also not very close to the center, and that used to make me upset. I used to think, well, this seems to be where the party's at. And while that might be where the party's at, there's also something else at the center of our galaxy. Does anybody know what that something else is? A black hole, Sagittarius A star, living at the center of our Milky Way. And I've kind of stretched what our Sky Tonight show can look like. You're not going to see most of this with your naked eyes from Earth. So let's start to head back in. Another thing to note, however, is that these sticks right here are not just markers that indicate where our planet is. Remember at the beginning of the show, those sticks connecting our constellations, the stars in our constellations? That is what this spiky ball is. So when you're looking up at the night sky, you're not looking at a two-dimensional surface, you are looking at a dynamic scatter plot of stars some light years apart from each other. And the universe is enormous. It is so very, very, very big. Something that really drives that point home for me is the radiosphere. Now, since the very first Marconi machine over 100 years ago, or around 100 years ago, we have been sending radio signals into space. And this little red ball is where those radio signals have reached at this point in time. It is hypothesized this is as far as the human voice has traveled into space. Not even to the edge of our naked eye constellation map. This means that in all of those years, this is about how far radio waves have traveled. The universe is enormous. And it's very likely that we'll visit the moon again in our lifetimes, and we may even take a look at Mars. But Earth is an oasis of life in our galaxy. And it really is the only home that we will ever know. It is our responsibility to take care of it and appreciate it. So as we start to zoom in a little bit, you might see some of our constellations taking shape again. There's Leo. There's where we got? Where's Corona over here? We got Booties over here. We've got Cassiopeia up there, slowly starting to unfold as we head towards our sun. Now we're going to also start to head back towards Earth. Let's head towards Earth, and I'll even turn on those solar system orbits so that we can get a good idea of where we are. Now, just a heads up about that. Sometimes it gets to be a bit of a bumpy landing when we head in towards Earth. We're zooming back in. All right, here we are on our planet Earth. Now, on the other side of the Earth, people are probably enjoying their mornings or going about their day, but where we are in the Northeast, it's really only about 9:01. So we're going to head back towards Philadelphia and land once again. You can see how bright it is in the American Northeast. It makes sense that there would be this much light pollution. Let's land.
That's cool.
When you look up at the sky, at first things might start to be a little bit overwhelming. I mean, the universe is enormous and there is a lot to see. But once you really start finding one or two stars, one or two constellations that you can use as touchstones, the sky becomes a much more vibrant and understandable place. So if you're facing south at around 9 o'clock, you'll be able to see quite a few constellations. We can start off with Orion over here. Look for that 3 belt and his sassy stance. Once you find Orion, if you follow his belt, you can go to Canis Major, finding Sirius, the dog star, and completing that trio, you'll be able to find Canis Minor. Now, traveling east from Canis Minor, you may be able to find the heart of the lion and slowly build out the trapezoid that is Leo. And if you crane your neck, you'll almost certainly be able to see Ursa Major, that contains the Big Dipper, and Ursa Minor, which contains the North Star Polaris. Now, going from there, you'll also almost certainly be able to see Jupiter for a little bit longer. Make sure that you try and see Jupiter. There's not that much time left to see it in the season, so make sure you take a look. And take a moment now and see if you can memorize 1 or 2 shapes. If you're like, this is easy, maybe try and spot Gemini, the twins, or the charioteer. We're going to take these guys away and see if you can still see everything.
Kinda.
I'm even going to turn on our light pollution. But see, even in this light pollution, you can still spot Orion, you can still spot the dog star, you can still find all of the constellations mentioned. Let's end on an optimistic note. Take one last look at the sky before heading towards morning. Let's bring back the sunrise. Remember, rising in the east, setting in the west, and there's our sun. Beautiful, bright. And now you can go and tell all of your friends and colleagues and schoolmates about the wonderful night of stargazing you had. Thank you all so much for stopping by for this Sky Tonight presentation. If you have any questions about the science we discussed,
please feel free to come back and chat. But otherwise, when you head out, you're going to want to head out on the left.